It's from golfing. It's a golf injury.
People have golf injuries?
Yeah, this is from holding my racket in a weird way.
Racket?
I mean, club. So many sports.
You're such an athlete.
I'm such an athlete between pickleball and golf.
Those are old people sports.
I'm old.
You're not that old.
I'm pretty old.
39 isn't old.
39's old.
Is it?
It's like half of my life.
What do you mean it's half? Oh. You're planning to only live to 80?
Yeah.
What?
If I live past 80, I'm going to have to watch my friends die. Well, thanks for having me on your podcast today again. In your new podcast studio too.
Honestly, this is the dream. We're sitting here. If you're not watching this right now, if you're listening in, I should say, we're sitting here in my living room. This is the first time we're doing it here.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's worth saying that we've had some pretty horrendous experiences at other podcast studios with sound.
Yeah, I apologize for our most recent episodes to everybody that has sat through it and listened, even though the sound quality was not up to
audio is important.
Yeah.
And you don't know how important it is until it's not great.
Totally. And we don't need to dive any deeper into like the logistics of podcast equipment. But
so here we are.
Here we are in my living room. Honestly, for me, like this feels like the dream. Mm-hmm. We're sitting on my couch. It's way more cozy. Mm-hmm. It's way more comfy. And to kind of just go straight in, I've been having a lot of conversations lately, and it's a beautiful thing. I'm super grateful for it, where people have come up to me saying very like just affirming our relationship dynamic and ultimately, saying things like, you guys have such a unicorn relationship. Like it's so rare what you have. And yes, while I hear that, I understand that in a very like deep way, I also recognize that it shouldn't be like, it doesn't have to be that way. This doesn't have to be this like super rare dynamic that you and I have.
I thought you were getting at for a second. Like, I didn't know where you're going with it. It doesn't have to be like this good. I was like, well, it's true.
We need a little bit more juice so we have stuff to talk about. No. Like, I just really believe, I'm such a firm believer that like this is possible for anyone and everyone. And I also recognize it's a lot easier said than done. And it does take two committed players to show up with intention and to choose this path of love. So I get it. I understand if like you're in a co-parenting dynamic or whatnot, you're in some sort of similar relationship and you want this for yourself so badly, but your partner or your co-parent is not really putting in the work. I totally understand. And I have a ton of sympathy and compassion for that. The place that like I really kind of want to go down today is the importance of like doing the inner work, because you and I, like, we wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be in a place where I genuinely like just want love and success and joy for you and your life if I hadn't gone to the depths of my own shit, like of my own darkness. I know that. And so I just kind of want to sit in that and talk a little bit more of like what your journey has been, what some of my journey has been, because I don't want you and I to ever come across, and I don't know if we do, but I just don't want us to ever come across like we've got it all figured out and we're in such a great place. And like, look at us way up here, but like looking down on everybody else that's like struggling in their co-parenting relationship. Like I never want to come across that way.
Yeah. The analogy that comes up for me as you were talking through that is this, and I think this is a very Western, and within this, it's a very masculine way to look at inner work or self-development, or even this idea of therapy or outside help for your mindset and your soulscape and all these other things, right? All this lingo and terminology that's out there. And it's very important, regardless of the brand of language you decide to associate with it, is one of your doing this work and you build the foundation and then you're done. You're good. And it's like the ice tank fixed me. I'm serious. Like, I think this is the way this stuff is branded. Like, the ice tank is the silver bullet that fixed me. The breath work is the thing that fixed me. The supplement, I take Alpha Brain now, so I'm good. I did ayahuasca one time, so let's go. And the reality is it's constant work for all of us. We're always changing. It's always fluid. The world is changing around us. And never should we be in a position or think that we're in a position to preach from the mountaintop of how healed we are and do as I do, because it's never a fixed, stagnant place that we're at. It's constantly a work. And I think a big part of your brand is sharing the journey, right? It's the journey. It's the ongoing journey is an ongoing thing. It's not you're not sharing the destination, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, it's both. It's both.
Well, true, because the destination is a current state.
Yeah.
But knowing that is something that is continuing to dissolve in real time and take a new shape, and that is also part of the journey. It's cyclical.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's why in spiritual circles and practices and textbooks and art that's ancient, you see a lot of cultures have the spiral. The spiral is considered sacred. Disney gets it, the circle of life. It's a circle, it's cyclical. All these things are cyclical. We all have a cycle.
Yeah.
So you and I have a cycle in our dynamic. We have a cycle with our daughter. We have a cycle individually, who we are. We all have a cycle with our parents. Our society is going through a cycle right now. It's beyond an election year. It's bigger than that. Our planet is going through a cycle. So that's the journey, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. You touched on some really important things there. And to say that you've arrived in this place of like the true healing, or I'm healed, or like meet me here is a false promise in a lot of ways. I think, like, in my own journey, looking back a year ago, I just realized today that I moved into this home. This is the first time I've ever lived by myself, ever. And I moved in here.
You have a roommate.
Sometimes.
She's small.
She is small, tiny rebel. I moved in here a year ago, almost exactly. The end of this month will be exactly 1 year. And as, you know, a 1 year time frame usually calls for a lot of reflection, it like got me to think back to the place where I was a year ago. And while I had like overcome and done a ton of inner work and like gotten to a place of, you know, acceptance and all of the things, even still, like looking back on that version of myself and all the things that have transpired through this past year, like it's been a beautiful journey. It's also been extremely difficult, extremely challenging and hard. And now the place that I'm in today, I have way more amazing moments than like hard moments. I'm laughing constantly. I feel like very lucky and grateful to be in the place that I'm in. And also, I still have hard fucking days. Like over the weekend, like I have found a flow as a single mom with our daughter, and still we have moments. We had to leave a restaurant on Saturday. We went to brunch with my family, and I had to remove her from the restaurant because she was crying, you know, about something that was upsetting to her. On the outside, it was silly. Her Polly Pocket little characters were in the car, and she didn't have
What's that like to have her have a meltdown with you? Because that's never happened to me.
It was...
I'm joking.
Yeah, I know you're joking. I know you're joking. It was really hard. We were in Waikiki, which, if you're not familiar with Oahu, Waikiki is like, you know, very busy. I had to walk her outside onto the street. There was nowhere for us to go. I needed her to just calm and allow the big emotion to move through her. And so I just held her and I rocked us both back and forth, and I closed my eyes and I got into it. And it was a lot. It was very draining on me. And as she did move through it, and eventually she did stop crying, of course, and we went back into the restaurant, I was shook. Like my nervous system was on high alert. I was in like fight or flight mode, but I was like doing my best to take deep breaths and to like ground myself back into my body. But I just share that as an example of like, life is still going to throw things your way. And it does get like, I have the tools, you know, I wasn't trying to resist her big outburst. I leaned into it and I did my best to calm and cool down my own nervous system so that that would hopefully translate, you know, and calm her energy, which ultimately it did. So I do have the tools. And even with that knowledge and awareness, it's still hard. And just to bring this back to like even our own like dynamic of our relationship, like I don't have those big like sad days where I did in the beginning or moments of like jealousy. Those waves of emotion have passed and moved through me. But I do still have moments where I feel like, you know, and especially because our phones remind us of memories or Facebook reminds me of memories or whatever the thing is, you know, Rebel this morning was decorating. We made you muffins over the weekend. She wanted to decorate the box. She found like some photos in her little nightstand. And so she taped photos of us to this box and like looking at them, I'm, you know, I'm still a human being and that like pulls at my heartstrings a little bit that like, oh yeah, we're not that family unit anymore. So I still have moments where that does come up. And so I just wanted to share a little bit of that stuff too, because I think it's important that like, yes, we are in a great place and overwhelmingly I'm like happy and as are you. And also I still have moments where like something will tug at me a little bit and things feel hard.
It's very human. You know, I had a day, it's funny timing for this conversation. I had a day, when was it? Like 4 days ago where, and I haven't had a day like this in probably 2-3 months where I woke up feeling, it was like so melancholic when I woke up and it was just everything was just kind of hitting me. I slept good. I was eating good. I had a good workout. I was going through the day trying to like shake what I was feeling. And I was even listening to like a comedy podcast. I've been listening to more comedy podcasts lately because I need less information and more just laughter and joy in my life. And so as I'm listening to this, I kept having this prevailing voice of truth come through that was stop avoiding and feel. And stop trying to create distance on this. You need to feel this. You need to process this. And I don't know how else to say it other than I felt like I needed to cry. Like I felt like I needed to, and I still have resistance saying that as a man, but I felt like I needed to, but it's Pride Month. It's Pride Month. Sorry.
No.
No. Okay. I'm trying to get you kicked off YouTube. I don't want people to listen to this. No, but I felt like, you know, I was adding pieces together over the last like 2.5 years of everything that we've been through. But it was my experience, you know, it was what it's been to go through a divorce, what it's been to transition and being a single parent, what it's like to watch our daughter grow, how much she's grown in that time. My new relationship that I have now with Christine, my relationship with my parents, my biological family, just hearing now that my mom has dementia and wondering how many more times I'm going to see her while she has a good state of mind. And my relationship with my sister, my business, having a team now. It's like there's so many things moving and just the weight of it all felt really heavy the other day. And it was a full work day for me. It wasn't like a day where, you know, I'm my own boss. And so I'm not calling in sick. I'm not taking a mental health day. I wish I could say that that I can create space for me in that way. And I'm just not in a place where I can. So I'm like, I was responding to emails with like tears in my eyes and I'm like driving to showings with sunglasses on because I'm like crying in the car and I'm just having a day where I'm really feeling kind of the weight of it all. And at the end of the day, I was like, just kind of doing inventory on how things went. And I was like, oh God, that was a heavy day. And is this okay? Is that, I'm like, yeah, it's totally okay to have those days. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I would argue the opposite, that was actually a really healthy thing that I processed. And I'm glad that I did. And in a lot of ways, I kind of, not relish, like I don't want more days where I'm crying, but I liked how much I felt, and I liked how connected I felt. And I want to make sure that when those feelings come up, I give them the space they need to process. And what I thought about with you and Rebel is I have the same thing with her whenever she has a freak out with me and I'm holding her, and you have this like vibrating, screaming child on your chest. And sometimes she's hitting herself, and like her meltdowns are real. Like I don't think they're anything abnormal. Like I'm not I'm not concerned, but it's hard to see it and it's hard to be around it. And I've had moments where I'm like the engine inside of us as parents, we're really revved up. How can you not be?
Yeah.
And it takes a minute. It takes a minute to feel through that and decompress and be like, okay. Oh, okay. Wow, that was a lot. And that's okay. Yeah. I didn't have a succinct point in any of that other than I think it's okay to feel. Everyone has their days.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so glad you shared all that, just because there is still such a stigma towards men and feeling their emotions. And that is something that I have always admired within you, that you are like, I mean, I don't know if you would say differently, but to me on the external, it feels like you are comfortable in your emotional states and you are comfortable expressing.
I'm constantly working on that, but I appreciate that.
Yeah. It seems on the outside that you are comfortable expressing your emotions, and that's a beautiful thing to witness as a woman to a man. And I think that is something that has like drawn a lot of people into your circle, men and women, because that's rare. And not all men show up that way. And that's also part of the human experience. And if you bury that and you avoid it and you numb that stuff, man or woman, I'll speak for myself, like it's going to bubble up eventually and it's going to come out eventually. And likely it's going to come out in a way that you're not proud of or you're not happy with, because it's going to be an outburst of emotion and you're going to be speaking from emotion instead of like a calm, heart-centered place.
Yeah, I think things have potential to get really weird and kind of eerie when you bottle things up. I think about there's no good analogy that's coming to mind. I love me a good analogy, but I think when all right, we're a crazy place to go with this, but you and I are both watching that TikTok documentary on Netflix, right?
Yeah.
And for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, there's this TikTok documentary called Dancing with the Devil. It's a 3-parter on Netflix right now.
Dancing for the Devil. Thank you. And it's basically about a bunch of influencers when TikTok was really coming up and it was more dance focused, and they get essentially manipulated into converting to a cult that was a spin-off of a Christian cult. And I don't want to give too much more away because it's really worth watching and it's really interesting to see how people get into psychosis. But what always gets me really engaged with, I think cult documentaries are super fascinating, and just how I think politics is really fascinating. There's a psychosis connected to it, and how people pattern behavior and trauma and their own stuff, and how they have these like often childhood needs that go unmet or emotions that go unprocessed, to bring it back to what we're talking about.
and how that then gets leveraged against them in a way where they're vulnerable is so fucking fascinating to me. And I saw that in that show, that each of these people had, whether it was a financial insecurity or a status or not enough love from dad or mom or whatever it was, they ended up in this position to be preyed upon by this guy who was the minister of this church. And it's fascinating to me. And I think that's just an example of how, if things go unchecked and unprocessed, that's a very extreme case. But we're all some iteration of that, you know, like with Rebel, if I go, I've been feeling this thing around burnout lately where I've just been adding so much to my life and I'm not giving myself enough time to really process, like, what does this new calendar look like? What does this new team look like? And I'm not giving myself enough time to process it. I know that. And so I'll come into my relationship with Rebel a little bit more charged. And the way it looks in real time is more short-tempered and less patience with her. And that's the last thing I want with our 4.5-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
You know, with anybody around me, but especially her. And so that was long-winded, but you know, without processing the thing, there's always a price to pay.
Totally. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that through, because something that's come up for me lately, as I have been so fulfilled in my social life. Like for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, you got friends now. It's cool to see.
It's cool to see that I have friends.
It is. No, I mean, you have like real, like we all have friends, but you have like a real crew of people.
Yeah.
I heard someone say this the other day. It's so douchey, but I'm going to say it. You're crewed up. You're crewed up.
Crewed up. Who did you hear say that?
It was on a podcast.
Oh,
This guy was talking about his friends. He's like, yeah, I'm crewed up. I'm like, I want to be crewed up.
That's so funny. Yeah, there have been seasons in my life where I've had, and some of like my best memories, honestly, were when I had like a big group of friends around me, from elementary school to high school to when we met and lived in Park City.
Yeah.
And there have been, variations of that since then. And most recently, like I have like this squad of friends that is so soul fulfilling for me. Like I feel so full after we're together because we're just laughing like the whole time. And
I just want to say something also, that you get extra credit for achieving that where we live, because here in Hawaii, it is hard to find a collective of people who are like-minded that you want to roll with and spend time with and invest yourself into. It's a small island, and just your odds of meeting said people are relatively low.
yeah.
And so I really do applaud you, because I know you've put a lot of intentionality around it. I'm kind of jelly. Kind of jelly.
Yeah.
I want a male version of what you're doing right now.
I feel that coming for you. It's no coincidence. I asked for this, and this may sound woo woo or hippie or whatever. And
you burned Palo Santo, and that's how this happened.
That's fine if that's how you feel. But I know that the term manifestation is very trendy right now.
Yeah.
I will say though, there is something so powerful about speaking something into existence and claiming that as something that you crave, want, need, desire for your life, and putting in the steps to bring that to fruition. You can't just like say, I want this, and just sit back on your couch and eat chips all day. Like that's not what I'm saying. You have to put yourself, and this is something that I absolutely like communicate as much as possible, is like, put yourself in the room. Like I invest in myself, in my personal growth. I invest in my business growth. And this is where I have like through one way or another met like this group of people and this community, also through dating, like remaining open to it all. It hasn't just come from like, one place. It's come from like multiple avenues.
I gotta say too, as an observer of your growth and your trajectory and your business and your brand and all this, it feels like it's all like a lot more in the ecosystem of who you are, what you're about, the actions you're taking. So like the audio is matching the visual, you know what I mean? it's apparent to me that you're living more in alignment. And of course, I think, I fuck the words have been so overused, but the manifestation, the law of attraction, the abundance, and all these things, I think that those ingredients, as powerful as they are, line up in the soup of life of that really is when people talk about the law of attraction and alignment. It's when you're just matching what you kind of what you're supposed to be doing, and what you're putting out there, you're actually doing it,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and people are attracted to that. And you put that literally on a microphone, and I think you've called all that in.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. There's living in integrity is like what comes to mind.
Hmm.
And, I I think it's important for me to share this part because it hasn't always been this like beautiful friend tribe that I have
Yeah.
today. It has been really hard. And if you listen to even like our last episode where I got emotional talking about all the loss that I
Mm.
went through, and I wasn't living in integrity. Like I did have skeletons in my
Hmm.
closet. I was carrying some secrets, and I was confiding those things in the people that I thought were my tribe. And ultimately, like, those relationships ended as they needed to. And I felt burned. They felt burned, like that dance went both ways. And at the end of the day, like, I can only take responsibility for myself and the way that I showed up in those
Yeah.
relationships. And I acknowledge the fact that I was not living in integrity
Hmm.
during that time. There, I was keeping secrets. I didn't know how to communicate. So the version that I was expressing to the outside world did not match with how I felt on the inside. And today, fast forward years later, like they do match.
Yeah.
And there is a reason why, yeah, everything that you said so perfectly is like there's a reason why my friend group now like is constantly attracting other very like-minded
Mm.
people that are very much in alignment with like our values and beliefs, and it just feels easy. And that is like a long-winded, wasn't even planning to go down that whole like friend tribe thing, but I've noticed because I feel so fulfilled in that area that then my mom hat, because that also is like a big part of who I am and my life and my responsibilities, has not, I haven't been pouring enough into
Mm.
that. And I think because I've been having so much fun with my friends
Mm.
and in like that for, in my like off time when I'm not working, that I've been having so much fun there that like I want to keep having fun. I want like more of that.
Yeah.
And so I've recognized, I have the awareness that I've been sort of like pulling away or withdrawing a little bit from my role as a mom, and even having a little bit of like resistance towards it, because that part of my life, while it is fulfilling, has some really hard moments. And
Resistance to being a mom.
yeah, just to like showing up
Yeah.
as like the best like model and version
Hmm.
of myself that I can be for her when I'm with her, and as like present as I can be. I've noticed that I've been a little bit more distracted, that my mind is that I'm physically with her, but I'm thinking about like, oh, what am I going to do with my friends this weekend?
Yeah.
Or like, what are we doing tomorrow night when like I'm not with Rebel? Like I'm just more focused on like that part of my life. Whereas, and it's just like a reality check. It's just those moments where like you move, because I think balance ultimately is like we strive for balance, but we're always leaning one way or another. And it's just those like little signals or signs that kind of that kind of creep in where
Mm.
it's like, oh yeah, okay, I need to check in. And
Yeah.
this one's a little bit off. I need to pour a little bit more into this bucket, maybe a little bit less from this bucket.
Hmm.
So that's just been over the last like few days, because I just had a weekend with Rebel and it felt tough. And
Hmm.
last night, as I was going to bed, I was like, why did this feel hard? And it's because I've been like distracted when I've been
Yeah.
with her. And I do have to give when I'm with just me and her. And when I'm with my friends, it's this, and we call ourselves the boomerangs because it's like it is a give and take, which is this beautiful relationship dynamic that I think is rare in some friendships. And as a mom, it's not really a give and take. It's a lot
Yeah.
of giving,
Yeah.
and that can feel draining. And
Mm.
so I just recognize that, like, okay, I need to put a little bit more effort and energy into being super present with her so that I'm not distracted, so that when the hard moments do come up, I can move through those without holding on to resistance of like, I wish I was somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm trying to connect with where you're at with that. I'm struggling, to be honest, because the give and take, there is a lot of take. I get that. There's a lot of energy output as parents and as stewards of her environment. We got to constantly be on it with her, right? And but the give I get from her is, and I put so much value into this, is just like, I mean, I could go on for days about this, so I'll try to keep it succinct, but she's such a lover. She's so funny. It's incredible to see this little human operate out in the world, and the way she exchanges with us and models words and language and sentences and all these things. And I genuinely like to hang out with her, but I've also, I don't have the friend thing right now. I have a couple of friends I hang out with sporadically, and I have Christine, who, I'm with her when I'm not with Rebel. And um yeah, I think I attribute a lot of value to what she brings into the environment. Like, I love hanging out with her, and it might be different if I have a lot of my identity tied to those moments with her. And I think you're right, though, and I appreciate how honest and open you're being about it, that, we have, especially, again, I think it's a very Western thing that you can just turn. I'm looking down at this Roadcaster right now, and there's all these knobs and levers on it and buttons that you can push and dials. And it's almost like in America, we often have the mindset where you can push everything up, the volume up, the bass, that everything goes up. So your empathy, your time with your friends, your fun, your humor, your presence with your daughter. I'm a great daughter, and everything goes up. Oh, I'm also killing it in business, by the way, and also I'm the most fit. And it's like, no, there's a price, there's a cost to everything. And if you're indexing hard on your time with your friends, that makes sense to me, that you're going to be more in that identity, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I think, like you said, and you alluded to, you put things back in their place. You clean the house up.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's what you got to do. And I'm doing that constantly too. I mean, my version of that is work.
Yeah.
My version of that is I over-index with work, and I've done it today. Scheduled myself too tight today. Even in this conversation, I'm like, where am I going next? Gotta get going on the road.
Yeah.
And it's it's the antithesis to being present and calm and happy.
Yeah. Yeah. I've just noticed that so much of my life and identity right now is wrapped up around being a single woman.
Hmm.
And there's nothing like it's not bad or good, right or wrong. There's none of that. It's just that I'm dating. So that's like one facet where I keep our daughter like very separate from that at this stage, at this time, like, cause I'm not like serious with anybody in like this moment. And so I'm a single woman in that. With my friends, for the most part, depending on what we're doing, but for the most part, like I'm my own single person in that. In business, in work, like, yes, like the content and things that I create, like she's included in that sometimes, but like when I'm like actually working one-on-one with my clients, doing the podcast, all of that, like I am a single woman. So there's so much, the majority of my life is spent right now as this single woman.
Yeah.
And I don't think like that's not a coincidence. You know, I think I overly identified with motherhood where I poured everything into that. And even as a wife where I poured like everything into that. And I lost my own identity in it.
Yep.
And so now I identify so much as like this single person, which is beautiful because I've gotten to spend a lot of time with myself and I've gotten to know myself in an intimate way. And I feel very connected to who I am today, what I want and don't want, what I'm looking for, my goal, all the things. And also the price of that, the cost of that is losing myself a little bit as a mom and recognizing like, oh, am I being a good daughter?
Yeah.
Am I being a good sister? Am I being a good co-parent? Like, am I being a good mom? And I would say right now, like I could do better. Even like lately with her, I'm like, I mean, I voiced this already, but just that I'm a little distracted and I'm not as present with her. And the reason why I share all of this is because like, I know there are so many women or men out there, if you can relate to this, where like maybe you do feel out of balance in one area because you are dating or you are wanting to spend more time with your friends or you are spending a ton of time with your child and you want to be dating and you want to be spending time with your friends, but like that feels difficult, you know, maybe it's the opposite of what I'm going through. And so it's like, less beating yourself up because that's the easy path. The easy path would be for me to go down the rabbit hole of like, man, I've been a shitty mom and I need to do better. And I don't do that anymore. I don't beat myself up anymore. I think I have the awareness a lot sooner than I used to and just recognize like, oh yeah, okay. The pendulum needs to swing a little bit back into my motherhood card and I can pour a little bit more time and energy into that.
Yeah, there's balance. You know, there's balance to it all. And losing yourself in something, I think, can be a really beautiful thing too. You know, there's losing yourself for me as how I've lost myself as a dad is something that I think I'll look back on as one of the most beautiful arcs in my journey on this planet was because what happened when I really lost myself as a dad, and I mean that in a positive light, like I kind of went all in. I kind of just, I don't know, like death is a strong word, but a lot of these parts of me, the moment I had held Rebel, I could feel my values kind of changing in what I cared about and how much I valued my own time. It was just never felt like my time from that point forward. I was like, you got all the time. You got all my time, baby. Like where for me, the way I'm wired and how intensely I love her is a feeling of like I could never love her enough. It's really intense. And that's never worn off. I don't know. It's not to say I don't have hard moments because I do, but it's my number one value. Like, it is. It just is. And I think that there's a possibility that maybe that's a little unhealthy and maybe it needs to go in a check, but it doesn't feel like it. It feels like it's a place where I can continue to cultivate awareness around that. And I know that Rebel, our daughter, feels very loved by me, and that feels like a win-win. You know? I've shared this with you before that some of the concerns I have about the way that I approach parenting and fatherhood and going all in with our daughter is that I don't know if I'm ever going to feel fully ready to give that part, to share that part of my life with somebody. And I could see myself being a single dad for a long time if I don't, because eventually people want in.
Yeah.
Eventually the person you're dating, it's like, give me some of this time too with your daughter. That's such a big part of your life.
Yeah. Well, aren't you there right now?
I am, but I'm not. You know, and out of respect for her, I'm not going to talk too much about that dynamic. But it's touchy. You know, it's really touchy, and I don't know how much I want to give to people. But anyway, I'm digressing from what we're talking about, but the balance of it all and the pendulum swing, as you were saying, I mean, that's life in so many ways with everything, right? And how we balance with the way that we parent is, it's also crazy how quick it changes.
Yeah.
Like what worked a month ago in terms of how you put your child down to bed or what they're into or any of these things, especially when they're kids, it's like that's a moving target. It's wild.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like her newest thing with me lately is like her just bossing me around.
Yeah.
Is literally like, no, mommy, that's not happening. No, mommy, I'm not doing that.
Oh, I think it's so funny though.
Oh, no, I absolutely think it's funny. I laugh, of course, because I try not to take myself or life or anything too seriously.
Yeah.
And also, it's still like, honey, like you're 4 years old. I'm the mom. And I mean, at a certain point, like you have to draw a boundary and you have to draw the line and, you have to whatever. It usually leads to a meltdown. But I also recognize that, yes, this isn't going to be here forever. We are constantly changing and evolving as she is, as I am. We're growing together side by side simultaneously. I've never been in this place before. She's never been in this place before. And we're doing this dance together. And that's like the approach that I really, really try to keep coming home and
like
back
that.
to is like, how can we move through this thing together? How can we have as much fun as possible while also like growing and learning and changing and evolving?
One lesson that I'm taking from you right now is how to call in more of that community and more of the people in your life to cultivate those relationships with in a deep way and really take your life to the next level. I'm seeing you model that in real time, and it's been really cool to watch. And so I wouldn't be too hard on yourself for what you're struggling with. And I think it's really noble that you're openly communicating about it. And if anyone is listening and you feel resistance to what she's saying because you see it in yourself, it's okay to talk about it. It's just real life. Like we're all trying to navigate and balance, all of us, every single one of us, me included. My disease is a little bit different. I've got work that I'm, choosing to be overconsumed with, and I love it. And I'm super passionate about it, but it's, it imbalances me in other ways. And so whether it's friends or whatever it is, it's just real talk. It's life. And I also think it's good life problems. And I'm trying to get to a place where I have that good life problem, where I have that community around me, so it's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate all that. It means a lot from you. All right. Till next time.
We'll do it again soon.